Thank you for watching. I'm John Razimus. In this episode of Occult Unmasked, I will be talking about the 10-year anniversary that has great importance to me. 10 years ago today, February 17th, 2010, exactly 10 years ago today, I possibly met the devil himself. I'm not going to go into every detail, but I will definitely detail it to a level at which I've never done so before. I met a high-ranking demon. I've talked about this many times. Many people are skeptical. Be skeptical. When someone makes a YouTube video and says I met the devil, when someone makes a YouTube video and says I met a high-ranking demon, be skeptical. Be skeptical of every word I say. But I happen to be speaking the truth. The angels in heaven hear my words, and I know of a surety. They see no guile in my words. I speak the blunt, honest truth. I've been doing YouTube videos for 10 years. Oh man. It's longer than 10 years. 11 years? Yeah, it's 11 years now. So I guess that is kind of interesting. I started this channel in 2009, and the high-ranking demon experience, you know what? I started this channel, I think, February 2009, and exactly 1 year later, I've most definitely questioned why this happened to me many times. Making a YouTube channel? I made a previous YouTube channel where I made comedy skits. But this particular story, as I said before, the angels know it's true. The devils know it's true. Entities of any spiritual nature, unseen beings, they know the story's true. Sadly, when you talk about a paranormal subject as extreme as meeting the devil or meeting a high-ranking demon, a lot of delusional people latch onto it. And I want to be delicate in saying, hey, you probably have experienced some crazy things, but as for me, I'm not crazy. So I don't identify with crazy people. I'm not insane. I'm 100% sane. I've never taken any drugs, for just an example of my sanity. I've only taken very basic heartburn, headache. That's it, my whole life. A little bit of heartburn, a little bit of headache, a little bit of acid reflux, a few migraines here and there. Nothing major, nothing big. What I'm about to tell you is 100% true. I think everyone has a truth, what do I call it? A truth compass, a truth gauge, a truth meter, a BS meter. And not everyone's BS meter works. Because on a regular basis, every time I tell a gut-wrenching, blunt story of great importance to my life, because it actually happened, as my history, it's not some make-believe nonsense. I'm a big fan of fantasy, a fan of this show, but I have no aspirations to turn it into anything fictional. It in reality happened. For this 10-year anniversary of when I met a high-ranking demon, which may or may not have been the devil himself. I'll tell you one thing, this spirit walked through me. But before I show that, I was going through the garage looking for something. I came back to my old set. I'm probably never going to film here ever again. This is the last video I'm ever going to film in front of this set. It's probably going to be torn down. I moved to a new state, looking for an important document. Unseen beings can influence things that go on in our life. Perhaps they hid this document to force me to drive back here so I can make this video in this location. It's hard to say. But here's a video of me the first time I visited the OK Corral. I've talked about my OK Corral video, but I've never shown this photo. This is me at the OK Corral. This was a while ago. As you can see, I'm pretty skinny. I was skinny as a kid. And it was a long time ago. It was when there was no fence. Now they have a pretty elaborate fence with placards and details you can read. But the first time I walked into the OK Corral, which was on this occasion, where I wore this shirt, this polo shirt, I walked 10 feet into the OK Corral. After you buy the ticket, you go past a stagecoach hearse with a coffin in it and some old Western antiques. They open the door, or you open the door and you walk. And I walked 10 feet and I looked at the wagons to the left of me, and a spirit walked through me. A spirit entity, an invisible being, clearly, definitively walked through me at the OK Corral. This is backstory so you can have some context of when I met the high-ranking demon in 2010, on February 17th, 2010. What's the exact date of the OK Corral? I looked on the back. I don't see a date. I could track it down if I really wanted to, but I haven't been able to get the exact date. I don't know the exact date of the first time I ever went to the OK Corral. I've lived 1 hour away from the OK Corral for a long time, and I only recently started going after this. I've probably been there. I've been inside the OK Corral area maybe 4 times at this point, and the other 3 times a spirit has not walked through me. Only this one time did it walk through me. And when the spirit walked through me, and I can tell, I have the discerning ability to discern spirits. Walk 10 feet, just looking at the wagons. Spirit walks through me. I was like, do not mention, don't even change your demeanor. I was quite paranoid, which is actually a pretty logical response. When a spirit entity walks through you, you don't want to react. Because in my mind, like Whoopi Goldberg in the movie Ghost, you don't want spirits to know you know they're there. Then they might follow you home, is the thought that popped in my head many times, because spirits have walked through me many times. At this point, hundreds of spirits had walked through me, to the point where I recognized what it was. It probably took 1,000 spirits before I realized what it was. Maybe 500, maybe a couple hundred. All I could say is this: the first 100 spirits that walked through me, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what the sensation was. It is like no other sensation, because it's a 6th sense sensation. My spirit feels their spirit is the actual sensation. It's undescribable. If you've never experienced it, it's because you don't have this particular talent and spiritual gift of discernment. Discernment sometimes means sees with your eyes. Luckily, I've said this many times, I cannot see spirits with my eyes. I've never seen a spirit with my eye, except maybe a shadow figure in the peripheral vision, a fleeting, very few times. Oh, that's right. I did see Gus the Ghost at the Comedy Store, perhaps, or a type spirit, which was shadowy and light and movement. And every time I turned, he was gone. And spirits can project images in your head. Anyway, that's for another time. No images were projected into my head when I met the high-ranking demon. I say I met the high-ranking demon, and when the high-ranking demon walked through me, I'll talk about that later. OK Corral. Spirit walks through me. I pretend it didn't happen. I'm paranoid because I don't want it to follow me home. I didn't tell anybody about it. Until maybe, I don't know, a couple months later. Maybe I told my mom. And family members are skeptical of such things. But she believed me. But, yeah, sure, that's interesting, I believe you, whatever, I don't mention it because I want to. I think the topic of spirits came up, and so I felt it was a good time to mention it. I saw a ghost hunting show a couple years later on the OK Corral. I don't know how old it was, but they investigated it and they discovered nothing. The spirit that walked through me at the OK Corral, it felt very neutral. And I gauged spirits that walk through me on a number scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I would say a 10, based on what I've experienced personally. The high-ranking demon in the year 2010, February 17th, was a 10. It's the only 10 I know of. Like in science, the biggest is a 10, and there's nowhere to gauge anything bigger. I'm sure there are many spirits bigger than the 10. Maybe I called the high-ranking demon a 9 or 8 or 7 in the past, but I've never had a spirit of greater intensity on a negative scale. I most definitely have felt a positive spirit on a greater scale. That goes into a religious realm, which this video is not about. Be your own religion, follow your own religion, do your own religion. That's none of my business. This story is just my history, 10-year anniversary of me coming in contact with a level 10, if you will. Not that this is an anime, but a level 10 negative spirit walked through me. It was intense, a 10, extremely strong. When it walked through me, there was a lot of resistance. It seemed. It felt like a lot of resistance. So this demon walked through me, a demon spirit entity, 100% optically invisible. Approximately, what time is it? 11 p.m. Between 11 p.m. and 11:15 p.m. on February 17th, 2010. My ears were open, waiting for a text message, and that's why my ears were open. Waiting for a text message on the bedside table. Text message never came, but what did was a negative entity sat in my closet on a cardboard box once. My ears perked up. I was fully conscious and fully wide awake. I'm a very light sleeper, as I said in a previous video. It takes me 3 hours, if I'm lucky, to go to sleep. Sometimes 5 hours, 6 hours, to get into REM sleep. Very light sleeper. So I probably had been in bed for, maybe I went to bed at 10 p.m. Probably 10:30. So at this point I probably had only been in bed for 30 minutes. Extremely light sleeper, takes me many hours to go to sleep. Fully wide awake, waiting for a text message. I hear a sitting on a cardboard box in my closet, which door is open, sound. In my closet I hear crunch. It's kind of like a creak. You know what it sounds like sitting on a cardboard box would sound like. I thought, oh, that's weird. I didn't talk to myself. I just thought, oh, that's unusual. Maybe there's just stuff settling in the cardboard box in my closet. It wouldn't be an impossible thing. For maybe something fell over due to gravity, even though I never touched the box, even though nothing ever happened. I never touched it. No one touched it. So something sits on the cardboard box in my closet to the right of me. I'm talking a little bit slower right now because a spirit just entered this room and they're listening to this conversation. There's a spirit in this room right now listening to me talk. Probably because this is the last video I'm going to make with this background, and probably because it's a pretty important video. Talking about the 10-year anniversary, I met a high-ranking demon, which may or may not have been the devil. I've told this story to only a few people in person. Some believe, some disbelieve. One said, wow, I think you met the devil. I think that was the devil. That's the first time I ever really considered, maybe it is, maybe it was. I said, I'm thinking maybe he was a general in the devil's army. I don't know anything about exact hierarchical militaristic leadership in the devil's army, and I would never pretend to. I know we have occult texts, which I researched after the fact. A lot of people accuse me of, oh, you know, this stuff happened to you because you researched occult books, dude. Nope. Because I wasn't exposed to the occult. I had zero exposure to the occult on any level other than everyone else in pop culture. I'm talking about, I never read a single occult book. By 2010, occult book I read would have been after the fact. In 2011, 1 year after, around a year after I met this high-ranking demon, which I believe did this, I rented a room and there were 2 imp poltergeist demon spirits that knocked over stuff for 6 months in a row. I am 100% convinced that high-ranking demon, which may or may not have been the devil, probably a general, pretty high-ranking, but I'm going to mention, the Goetia. The Goetia, some say it's a hoax, some say it's real, some say it's adapted from a real thing, some say it works, some say it doesn't. The Goetia definitely has truth to it to the point where it can work, and the demons it describes, pretty freaky. We got mayor demons, we have king demons, we have prince demons, different levels of kingdoms. There's a mayor, so different like townships of demons. So they definitely have a system if the Goetia is legit. The Goetia has been considered a hoax, whatever. This isn't about that. It's about there is a militaristic thing, but that has nothing to do with my calling this a high-ranking demon. I'm just saying you can research, and I researched all this stuff after the fact because I wanted to know what happened. Spirit watching me make this video. Spirit watching me while I make this video, I guess you're not disturbing the video too much. What happens when you talk about demons is demons show up. I suspect if you talk about angels, maybe angels perk up their ears a little bit more. I don't know. The spirit that entered this room not too many minutes ago didn't walk through me, but I could feel it. I could feel it come close and maybe hover around over here, maybe sit down, I don't know. No objects have moved or anything. It's pretty rare. I don't experience poltergeist activity that often, except for on January 15th, I experienced poltergeist activity of something made a sound in the corner of the room, which I moved to. And watched that video of me in my car talking about that. I've already been mocked for that. I get mocked for no matter what happens. But the OK Corral spirit that walked through me was pretty wimpy, but it wasn't a 1. It was a 2 or maybe even a 3. 1 is very weak. 2 kind of jolts me and gets my attention. 3 will jolt me and get my attention even more, to the level of just a power level of, I don't know how you would relate it to something in this worldly world. Let me think. A physical world. what's a physical equivalent to a 1, 2, 3 spirit? Let me think. See, it's hard to create analogies. It's hard to create a metaphor. It's hard to create something to relate to. Touching a socket. Touching, I guess a level 1 spirit would be like touching a really weak battery that's almost dead to your tongue, a 9-volt. And you get, a tiny, tiny jolt. It's almost dead and you get something. That would probably be pretty strong, actually. Just a very minor electrical jolt. And a 2 would be a stronger one, 3 would be a stronger one, so on and so forth. But I can feel and I can discern with my ability, and perhaps even mentioning that I even have an ability, it might be one of the reasons I became a target from these invisible entities. They wanted to try to exploit or just poke and prod like I'm some type of test subject, because not too many humans have what I have, and I'm not claiming it's great on any level other than perhaps useful in ghost investigating. But it's really not useful in many other things other than, I guess if you're going to rent a room. But even then, I rented a room in 2010, turned out to have 2 poltergeist imps. The first 2 weeks, nothing happened. When I went in there, rented it, when I toured it, nothing. Didn't sense or feel anything. 2 weeks in, nothing. Only after 2 weeks did the demon poltergeist activity begin. In front of my eyes, I witnessed for 6 months in a row, over 160 days in a row, I witnessed in front of my eyes objects moving, such as cups full of pencils, water bottles, usually not full ones, half full, 25% full. The biggest thing I ever saw was it knocked down 2 huge cardboard boxes, which were understandably probably both less than 50 pounds. They were probably both in the realm of 10 pounds each. So fairly light boxes, but still the biggest thing they ever pushed over, biggest thing they ever moved. They knocked over a tripod, and I personally believe these poltergeist demons from 2011 were assigned to me, imps, familiar spirits, assigned to me from this high-ranking demon from February 17th, 2010. Tons of resistance. I know I'm jumping around because so much happened. It's just how my brain works. I see all these things, I remember all these things, I recall all these things, and I try to give you a new perspective on what happened. And it's always the same story because it actually happened, but I'm just trying to give you some insights if I left anything out. I hear a sitting sound on a cardboard box in the closet with the door wide open, so I can really hear it. The distance between my ears, which are now paying attention to my closet direction, and the closet would have been 4 feet, 5 feet maximum. Probably closer to 4 feet, 4.5 feet. Probably closer to just 4 feet solid. It's hard to judge, but I did take photographs actually of this room. You will see those photographs in the future. My sister was renting this house. She was kind enough to allow me to live there until I found my own place. She and her family lived there. Not too many days after this high-ranking demon walked through me, I decided to move. Not too many days after. Because 1 or 2 days after it happened, my nephew... oh my goodness, it wasn't 1 or 2 days. It was literally the next day. Okay, so February 17th, the demon walked through me between the hours of 11 p.m. and 11:15, because I checked my phone clock and it said, I believe, 11:14. So I round up to 15. The events were very short. Only a few minutes transpired. But one of the pinnacle, not in a good way, but in a bad way, extreme moments in my life that made a massive impact on everything I do. Hopefully for the better, hopefully not for the worse. The okay. The next day, February 18th, I went to work as usual. 9 to 5. I know it sounds sounds like a fake time frame, but I actually worked 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at a call center. I didn't take calls, I did email customer support at the time. Go to work, 9 to 5, get home. You gotta understand, a demon freaking walked through me the night before for the first time in my life. Spirits had walked through me before that, but never a demon of any level like that. Perhaps a few super low level demons walked through me before that. I do believe some of the neutral spirits that walk through me that I consider 1 or 2s are most definitely demons. They're just such low level, low ranking demons, imps, that they don't register as pure evil for one reason or another. Maybe because they just follow commands, and I can only speculate. But maybe a few 3 or 4s walked through me before this 10 walked through me. So I did feel negative spirits walking through me in the space of my life before this, really spaced out, maybe a number of years, so many years before this event that I can't recall, I can't remember. I don't have a journal, I don't have a spirit journal, although I did for a month try to keep one, only to be ridiculed and mocked. My detractors, my haters exist. If you have haters, you're doing something right. Some of my haters are on some type of quest to prove me wrong. You can't prove me wrong, as I speak the blunt, honest truth. I stand on top of a hill, mountain of truth, and I see people trying to tear me down, and they think I'm trying to create an entertaining story for entertainment value purposes to sell as a book or a movie, such as couldn't be further from the truth. I guess I can't afford to go to someone to vent and tell these stories to on any professional level. But I'd freak the crap out of them if I did. I'd be open to that, but I would freak them out. They'd probably ask me to find someone else. But no, I've never contacted and talked to anyone. So I vent, okay? I vent on YouTube. It's free, and it does give me an idea of what people think about it. With the poltergeist room, the first 10 people I told, maybe 1 out of 10 believed me. Maybe 3 were like, I don't know, man. But most of them were full-blown, okay, and just didn't believe me, thought I was full-blown crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm just someone that's not afraid to talk about it. I mentioned to a religious leader in the year 2011 about the poltergeist room, and probably mentioned the high-ranking demon from 2010 as well, and they told me to not talk about it. They said, you probably shouldn't talk about that. No, just forget about it. I could forget about it if it was fake and if it didn't happen, but because it's one of the most traumatic, life-changing, enlightening from the perspective of knowing invisible entities manipulate our world on such a level where they can walk through you and sit on a cardboard box in your closet and do other things, such as poltergeist activity, move objects. Clearly the high-ranking demon had poltergeist abilities because it sat, it's a spirit being, but it sat on a cardboard box in my closet now. I was listening when it sat. 2 or 3 minutes went by. I'd say 2, but maybe 3 minutes. I didn't get out a stopwatch. I was sitting there in the pitch black room, probably laid down 30 minutes prior. 35 minutes prior would be a good guess. 2 or 3 minutes later, I hear the sitting sound on the exact same cardboard box for a second time. That's when I knew there's something in my closet. There's something sitting on a box in my closet. No one's in my room. No animals were in my room. No cats were in my room. No mice. And then the spirit did something, which I've never mentioned. I've never mentioned this. I'll mention what it did for the first time ever. For anyone who has the patience to have gotten this far, or for anyone who was lucky enough to skip to this part in the video, for the first time you're going to hear a reveal. And I only hold back this stuff for reasons that I can't detail always, because it's a plethora of reasons. One of the reasons is I hold back stories is because demons want to get your reaction. They want you to be full of fear. If they do something huge in your life, such as walk through you and sit on the cardboard box in your room, they're trying to scare the crap out of you. If you don't mention that story for 5 years, not only have you taken all the steam and smoke from the fear of that story, and you can look back on it and learn from it without any fear involved, but you take away their entire purpose for doing it, which was to scare the crap out of you. So this spirit clearly was trying to scare me, intimidate me, frighten me, which most definitely it did. I probably got 10 seconds of sleep that night, if that. I probably got 1 hour of sleep that night. I don't remember sleeping a single wink that night, and I went to work the next day. When I got home, I was extremely tired. But I'll reveal for the first time right now. The spirit manifested on a box in my closet, sat on a box in my closet. I don't know if it got up and then sat on the box a second time, or if just it getting up sounded like it's sitting a second time. Being invisible, I could only speculate, but maybe the second sound was it getting up. When you sit on a cardboard box, it makes a sound. When you get up from sitting on a cardboard box, it makes a sound. I think that's probably what happened. It sat on the box, made a sound. It stood up, it made a sound. The spirit entity walked. I assume it walked a couple feet from the box in the corner of my room. Remember, it wasn't the corner of my room. Usually it's the corner of my room. In 2011, it was the corner of my room. No, in 2010, the closet, but technically not the corner of the room. I have taken photographs you will see in the future. We have the door, and then we have a space behind the door so the door can, whatever the case, and then we have the closet sticking out, and then this is the corner, the left corner of the closet. We have a cardboard box, and the closet being as open as it can be, you can only open one side at a time. The side with the cardboard box was opened. The spirit entity sat on it, probably got up, but it did at the time it sounded like it sat on the same spot twice, which maybe it did, but it probably didn't. It probably stood up, but it made a considerably loud creak on cardboard, as much as you can make on cardboard. A second time when it probably got up. I'm confident it got up. It stood up, probably. Being invisible, it wouldn't matter if my eyes were open or closed. But my eyes were open. I didn't see anything visually. My eyes were in the direction of the sound. My ears were in the direction of the sound. I was focused on the direction of the sound, which I estimate 4.5 feet away. The spirit entity walked in my direction, exactly toward me. Alright, it came toward me about 2 feet. So if the box was 4 feet away from me, the spirit walked exactly 2 feet close to me. I drew a diagram shortly after this happened on a piece of paper, just a pencil or a pen. piece of paper, a rough sketch of the layout of the room with the bed and the closet and the box and the route that the demon, the spirit, the unclean spirit, evil spirit, high-ranking demon, perhaps the devil, it's been speculated. It walked 2 feet and it spoke. The demon, the high-ranking demon, I believe it's a high-ranking demon because I could feel it walk through me, and it felt more powerful than any spirit I've ever felt, of pure evil, pure hate. It spoke. The demon spoke. Disembodied voice. Now that's what I've held back for 10 years. I've never mentioned in any video ever that the demon spoke to me. I heard a distinct disembodied voice from the direction of an entity standing as tall as a human would have stood 2 feet away from me. 2 feet away from me, while I'm lying in bed, I heard a voice come from the direction of maybe a 6 foot tall entity speaking from the direction of 6 feet tall and 2 feet away. I estimate 6 feet. Could have been 5 feet. Could have been 7 feet. I'm just giving a general guess here. But I heard a disembodied voice. As clear as you can hear my voice now, I heard this voice. I've researched the subject after the fact, never beforehand. But I did come across this book at the $1 sale at the local library years ago. I did a book review on it. It's The Black Arts by Cavendish. Richard Cavendish, a very famous occult researcher, author. He's a fan of Aleister Crowley. I noticed that in this book. He praises him on a few occasions in this book. And I read this book, did a review on it. It's a collection of stories. Some stories from medieval times, some stories from the Renaissance period, some stories from just anything Cavendish could find. He threw it in here. Stories that probably would have been lost to time if he didn't put them in here. I think there's a story about a poltergeist and a maid that I found a little bit interesting. So that's the story that kind of stuck out to me the first time I read it. Specifically, the second time I read this book, and I admit I didn't read the whole thing. I just flipped through it looking for any insight. I was probably looking for the story of the girl and the poltergeist. I was probably looking for that. But instead, I found a breakthrough. That's why I read these random books. Something happened to me on February 17th, 2010. Been researching it for 10 years, ever since. Pretty consistently. And I heard a demon spirit, an evil spirit, an unclean spirit, whatever you want to call it, arose by any other name smells the same. Is that correct? I mean, it's a very famous saying. I'd say an evil spirit by any other name smells just as disgusting, just as bitter. Or when it walks through you, it feels just as horrible. The demon spoke, the spirit spoke, the unclean spirit spoke, the evil spirit spoke. 2 feet away from me, disembodied voice. Now, this is why I've held it back so many years, because I knew that, well, this is freaky, life-changing event, but no one's going to believe me. I think if something like this happens to the average regular person, and I think it does, they don't talk about it. Because it's pretty freaky. It's pretty unbelievable. If I saw this YouTube video and I was seeing it out of context, thinking this channel was entertainment, I probably wouldn't believe it either. I have 400 plus videos on this channel. Someone made a comment the other day, you said something with demons, but you don't know anything about demons. Maybe research, buddy. Maybe research? A freaking demon walked through me of such a high degree of so much evil. When it walked through me, I felt about 1,000 spirits trail behind it. About 1,000 spirits walk behind it. But the demon spoke. I don't want people to think I'm schizophrenic. I'm not a schizoid. Never have been, never will be. I do not hear voices. I've never heard voices. Ever. Except for that one disembodied voice on February 17th. So any skeptic, and there's going to be skeptics, can I prove the story? No, I can't. Even if I filmed it on Ghost Adventures, you still wouldn't believe it. So no amount of proof would convince a skeptic, a disbeliever, a die-hard debunker. But being the hoax hunter that I am, I'm a fan of science, I'm a fan of truth, I'm a fan of debunking false stories, I'm a fan of being a skeptic of false stories, I'm a fan of telling it like it is. James Randi. I'm a fan of James Randi in the fact that he really debunked a lot of criminally dishonest, fake psychics. But my story's true. As the hoax hunter, busting hoaxes is something I did. Nobody did it on a level that I did it, and I focused on time travel. I was never interested in spirituality on a level of talking about it on YouTube. A spirit walked through me, alright? It didn't look like this. It didn't look like I couldn't see anything. My eyes were open, pitch black, optically invisible. I don't have the ability to see spirits, except for perhaps peripherally on some minimal level. I didn't ever see this spirit. Sat on a box in the corner of my room, got up from that box in the corner of my room, walked approximately 2 feet, spoke. I'm not going to tell you what it said. Why? Because I don't want to hear on a podcast in 2 months. I don't want to see in a movie on Netflix in 1 year. I don't want to hear that, hey, you got that from a novel in 6 months. I don't want some Hollywood person to take this story away from me and mock it, turn it into a mockery, and make me look like a fool. That's my main motivation for never sharing the full story, A to Z. But I will share the full story A to Z one day. I've been working on the book in my head for 10 years straight. Hasn't materialized, hasn't manifested. But it will. It will. My book, Corners of Rooms, focusing on the 2011 poltergeist entities that moved objects in front of my eyeballs every single day. I believe one of the spirits, well, 2 of the spirits, yeah. I mean, I originally thought it was one poltergeist, but when it sat on a pillow twice, when I saw the feet jump up twice, I did see that. When it choked me, spirit demon entities choked me in the middle of the 6-month encounter 2011. Totally different story. Check out my video, Demon Poltergeist Haunting of John Razimus. What I experience is 100% authentic. Angels in heaven know it's true. The demonic entities know it's true, and they show up occasionally to listen. I think demons are interested in just living out the old days, or maybe getting ideas from other demons when they hear stories such as this. I think demons communicate with each other, but I think they don't communicate like a human communicates. Demons are very cold and calculated, like a gray alien, if I had to guess, because I did have first-hand experience with that demon in 2010, and I had first-hand experience with probably 2 of the imp demons with poltergeist abilities that it assigned to me in 2011. The demon spoke. It said something. I heard it. Years later, I read this book for the second time. I flipped to a random page which talked about a voice spoken by the devil himself, according to this book. The description of the voice of the devil in this book exactly mirrors what I heard. And the story is, I don't know how old. I think it's hundreds of years. I could look it up, but the thing is, I'm going to put this quote in my timeline collection of historical documentation of what I'm putting together. And you will see the exact page, the exact quote. So what does the devil's voice sound like? I don't know that it was the devil. That's the thing. What did this high-ranking demon's voice sound like? It was male. One time have I heard a disembodied voice. I remember, you probably heard of the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren. I heard them on Art Bell at least twice live. Huge fan of Art Bell. I listened to them talk about their EVPs. They invented the term EVP, electronic voice phenomena, which is now commonplace. Everyone knows about it. But Ed and Lorraine Warren invented it. And I listened to them play live for Art Bell, their best EVPs they had on physical magnetic tapes. They were playing for the biggest late night paranormal radio show in the world. And they're freaky. Some of them were freaky. Some of them you couldn't understand. Some of them you're like, that's just static. But some of them were crystal clear. And you're like, maybe they just talked and they claimed someone else did it. But no, EVPs are real. I've caught a couple EVPs, most notably at a tunnel in Tucson and just walking down the street in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles spirit said, "Hey," and then my device went off. And that's it. I didn't hear it audibly though. Wasn't a disembodied voice that I could hear. It was just on the electronic recorder, nothing more. That's the more common way to hear them. Disembodied voice is there's no devices. You literally hear it. And I heard it once, never again. Researched. It's a sign of something paranormal happened. Something supernatural happened. Something interesting happened. If it's a one-time deal, it's not an illness. It's an actual phenomena. It actually happened. True story. So, the spirit walked through me after it spoke. I have to recall. If anyone is a sleuth, this book is very common. You can pick it up anywhere. Very common. The Black Arts by Richard Cavendish. You probably pick it up for 99 cents. That's how much I picked up mine for. I've only researched it after the fact because of what happened to me. The demon spoke. Very shortly after did it walk through me. Maybe 30 seconds after it spoke, it walked through me. Maybe 1 minute after it spoke, it walked through me. The spirit walked through me starting right here. I'm trying to recall. I'm laying on my back, but probably turned in the direction of the closet. So it's hard to give an exact example, but I did draw this on an illustration many years ago. Never shown it. I was saving it for the chapter where I talk about this in my book, which will exist one day. I share this information for free. Do with it what you will. One of the most life-changing moments of my life. Possibly for the negative, or if I'm an optimist, for the positive. It's really hard to say at this point. I could see people watching this video and judging me and calling me crazy or treating me differently because of it. But this event actually happened. The high-ranking spirit, which I call high-ranking because it had 1,000 spirits after it. I've never experienced ever spirits trailing behind another spirit walking through me, ever. Now, maybe it's happened, but if it's 3 at the same time, I would probably consider it a 3. Or if it's 3 weak ones, I might consider it a 1 or 2. And I've never felt the trailing effect. This high-ranking demon, let's just get rid of the high-ranking, just this evil entity, this evil spirit, sat on the box in the corner of my room, got up, walked 2 feet, spoke, said something, probably around 1 minute later. I think he was standing there for a minute after it spoke to me, waiting to see if I was going to respond. I didn't respond. I kept dead silent, but I was paying extreme attention. It knew I was, because I was awake, my eyes were open, and I was in the direction which it spoke to me from. I believe it walked through me starting around here. And it went up. And behind the spirit trailed 1,000 spirits, perhaps. All I know is I couldn't count. It's kind of like a mother duckling. A mother goose and a bunch of ducklings following behind it. If you could relate it to something, it perhaps could have been like that, but this is a spirit walking through me. So this is a totally abstract thing to describe. Walked through me, and then it stopped, and it turned, and then it went in the direction of my window, and I assume walked through my window, flew out my window. When it walked and stopped in the middle of my chest, the spirits behind it were trying to catch up. The spirits behind it felt like 1s, 2s, and 3s. I've never felt 1,000 1s, 2s, and 3s go through me at the same time, ever. Before, ever since. Kind of like the disembodied voice. It's a one-time deal. It's never happened since. That's one of the extreme reasons why I consider it high-ranking. The spirit turned, but there was extreme resistance. You got to understand. Spirits that walk through me usually walk front to back, back to front, side to side, side to side, which I only found many years later that is something some Buddhist sects believe in. Never heard that from any book until I found one random YouTube video of a Buddhist leader of a particular group mention it. It blew me away. So it's something some Buddhists have written down, where they know that spirits walk through you north, south, east, west. In that video, which I have posted on this channel, you could probably find it by searching, he says if a spirit walks through you front to back, back to front, if a spirit walks through you north, south, east, or west, which is what this is, he says point in the direction that it walked through you. So if it walks through you front to back, turn around and point and tell the spirit, keep on walking. Keep on walking, spirit. No thanks. Keep on walking. Now, that's his particular Buddhist scripture, perhaps. Doctrine, perhaps. He read it, probably, or maybe it's an oral tradition. I don't know, because I never heard it, never read it. But extremely fascinating to me. I would never do that, because like I said in Tombstone, Arizona, I didn't want the spirit to know I even knew. But in this case, the spirit knew that I knew it was there. It sat on the box in my room, and I immediately went, huh? And I turned my head and peeked and focused my ears on it. It spoke. I probably reacted minimally, something like that. Walked through me with great resistance. Most spirits that walk through me is very fast. 1 second. 2 seconds. 5 seconds would be 5 seconds would be considered extremely long. Pretty rare. Maybe 5 seconds happen to me here and there. Maybe 100 times, maybe 50 times. I don't know, but extremely rare, and it's usually a weak one or two or three. Extremely rare. They usually walk through me in the space of 1, 2, 3, less than that. I mean, I would estimate some go less than a second to walk through me. What are they doing when they're walking through me? I don't know. All right, I'm not gonna pretend to know. I don't know all the secrets of the universe, but clearly they're doing something, right? Maybe they're seeing if I react to them. Maybe they walk through every single human. I've rationalized and guessed at reasons many times in many videos. One of them is gauging to see where my spirit is at, good or bad or neutral, or gauging to see where my body is at, to see if my body is a good candidate for possession. That is the scariest option, but I have to consider all options. Spirit walked through me. Like I said, they usually walk super fast, and it's usually very weak. Walked through me, very powerful. Immediately, I'm almost feeling physical. Oh no, I did feel physical. I reacted very physically when it walked through me. Not possessed. I wasn't possessed. It was not a seizure or anything like that. I've never had a seizure in my life. I don't have any illnesses like that in my life. Never have. I reacted to what felt like electric shocks, but it was a spirit. Okay, the spirit walked from here, stopped, but it walked about this slow, with great resistance. Stopped, turned, and then went in the direction of the window. Never has a spirit ever turned while walking through me, ever. Every single time the spirit walking through me has just gone left to right, right to left, front to back, back to front, north, south, east, west, just like that Buddhist guy said. Never did he do that. I think the spirit did this to prove he's different from other spirits. He's like, hey, you've never seen this before. I don't know why he would want to brag. I say he because the spirit spoke, the demon spoke, pure evil. I'll detail what it felt like in greater detail after I say this. It had a male's voice. I'll go into greater detail. I'll say it had a very old man's voice. Old man. How old? I'm talking about a disembodied voice talking to me from 2 feet away. I can only guess, but it sounded like a 100-year-old man's voice. Maybe 110-year-old man's voice. Very old man's voice. We're talking someone on the brink of a coffin's voice. And clearly it was attempting to scare me. I'm not going to tell you what it said, but it said something only a demon would say. If you don't like the way I talk, it's just this is me. It said something extremely you could say if you saw what it said on a ghost show, they would react and they would probably say, ooh, this is disturbing. It said something disturbing. With the purposeful intent of striking fear. And if anyone says, oh, you just hear voices, man. It was one time, it was disembodied spirit. I didn't just hear one voice from 2 feet away from me. I heard something sit on and get up from a cardboard box in my closet twice. You can consider that one thing, but it happened twice. It walked close to me, 2 feet away, and it spoke, disembodied. It's a totally separate thing than the box, totally separate. It walked through me. I felt it. It felt like electricity, but I'll go into more detail. It's a totally separate thing from these ones. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 different things happening. 4 different things happening. 4 different things, all right? Never taken substances that weren't generic or brand name headache medicine or generic or brand name heartburn medicine. That's it. And I didn't take it that day or that night. I'll tell you that, because it's expensive stuff, or I don't remember having a headache. So, nope. Don't take the stuff regularly, only when needed. 100% clean, stone cold sober. Thing walked through me. The resistance is hard to describe. I described it once as sticking your finger in a plate of honey, and if the honey had sat there many days and it was really hard, maybe sticking your finger in a plate of paint that's really hard but not fully hard, maybe sticking your finger through a plate of Play-Doh, hard jello. Hard to describe, right? Because the finger would be the spirit and the jello would be my body. But the spirit entity walked through me very slow with great resistance, and I'm feeling a spirit electricity type thing go through me. It's not electricity though. It has nothing to do with electricity. And when it walked through me, I felt pure hatred, pure dread. I was scared, no doubt about it. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared. I didn't sleep probably more than 1 hour that night. Extremely impactful. I was scared. I'll tell you what happened later. I go off on tangents upon tangents. But what it felt like was pure evil walk through me. Evil incarnate in some, actually disincarnate. Evil packed in a compact ball, if you will, walking through me. And behind it, a bunch of spirits following it. I believe when it walked through me, it was gauging my body for possession candidacy, compatibility, and I believe it was gauging my spirit. I think it discovered pretty quickly my spirit's a good one and my body isn't compatible for possession. I would say most definitely not. I don't believe I've ever been possessed. This is probably the closest thing I've ever been to possessed, when this thing was perhaps trying to. Walks through me. I feel pure hatred, pure misery, pure sorrow, sadness, anger, hate, despair, destruction, evil. Just any gross, disgusting emotion you've ever felt in your life condensed into a ball going through my stomach area, my torso. And I believe one of the trailing spirits that was trailing behind it, if not two, were more compatible than the other 1,000. And I believe that's just a total theory, total speculation, but I believe it's possible. And I believe the high-ranking spirit assigned 2 of its familiar spirits that follow it to harass me close to a year later in what would be an apartment I would find on Craigslist and rent for $400 a month for 6 months. So I lived in a house my sister rented, and then this is what happened. I barely have any sleep. I go to work 9 to 5. I get home probably 5:30. I immediately go to bed and try to catch a few winks. I'm still wearing my work clothes, and I'm trying to get a few winks. Work clothes fully on, but my shoes on the floor. I'm trying to get some Z's at 5:30 p.m. Not normal. And my nephew knocks on my door. Pounds on the door. I lock it. But the door doesn't lock too well. With minimal force, the lock doesn't work and you can push the door open. And he knows this. He says, hey, John. And I just ignore him. First time he says it. He does it again. He says, hey, John. I ignore it. He knocks really violently. Hey, and I yell like, hey, you know, I'm trying to sleep here. Something like that. I can't remember the exact words. Just, you know, I'm busy. No thanks. You know, I didn't know what he wanted. All I knew is I was dead tired from the night before. And he forces the door open. Oh, okay. Maybe what happens is I go to the door and I open it, and he says, "Hey, John, can you give us a ride?" And I said, "No, man, I'm sorry. It's probably hard to describe. I need to take a nap at 5:30 p.m., but I do my best to describe that." And I close the door, and I keep it locked. He pounds more while I'm trying to sleep. He pounds more, and he pushes the door open. My nephew proceeds to jump on top of me while I'm in the bed. He grabs me, and he rips my brand new shirt that I bought for this new job at the call center. And he rips it so hard the buttons come off of my brand new shirt from work that I'm still wearing. And he's yelling that they need a ride for a test they're going to take for a job interview, and that it's a life or death situation. But I've never seen my nephew like that, ever. He's never jumped on top of me and attacked me before, ever. But he attacked me so hard he ripped the buttons off my shirt. I've 100% forgiven him for this event. But the demon, and then being attacked by my nephew, caused me to immediately move out. I moved out within a couple days after that. I moved out. Where did I move? I moved to the Vortex. Yeah, there's a group of guys that I knew of, had been acquainted with for a couple months, and they were looking for a new roommate for a house they were renting. There was multiple college age guys renting a house, and it was I think the master bedroom, and I was desperate to find a new place, so I said sure. This place had a nickname, the Vortex, because they would go in and play games or watch movies and people would never leave. That's the joke, haha. I didn't consider the Vortex a particularly bad or particularly haunted place at all, other than the one time, which is probably some type of foreshadowing of the next place I would live in. But the high-ranking demon clearly left the house. It was a one-time event. But I was living in the Vortex, the next house, the college guy house. They played D&D and did different stuff. They played video games, they watched movies. I didn't participate in 99% of the stuff they did, so I wasn't close friends with them or anything. But I heard my sister was moving out. So I go to my sister's house, because I know this is probably the last time I have an opportunity to take photographs of the room and the closet where a freaking demon manifested in my closet, walked through me with pure bitter and hatred and evil going through my body. So I feel all these evil emotions: hate, despair, sorrow, misery, hatred. I know I've already said that, but times a million. And the second it leaves my body, all of those emotions gone. And yes, I did physically react. I didn't spaz out. I was like, ugh. It was kind of like they're riding a roller coaster through my body, and I was reacting kind of like, ugh, that kind of hurts, but it's a spiritual energy. It's a spiritual electricity. So it hurt. To be honest, quite frankly, 100% honest, any physical feelings I felt, I'm not gonna lie. So this thing is going through my body. It's of a spiritual nature, but it did feel like my intestine were being almost rifled through and moved around a little bit during the process. So, I mean, this thing had poltergeist abilities, meaning it could move objects. I think it was trying to move my intestine a little bit, just to prove a power play, whatever the case. This thing walked the freak through me. It happened. I'm not the most eloquent speaker in the world, but an extremely powerful negative entity walked through me, had a grudge against me for some reason, assigned, from my perspective, from my theory, which is unprovable. But what is provable is I have purchased thousands of dollars of occult books to research what happened to me. More than just this $1 book. My bookshelf's empty because I moved to a new state, and all my books have been packed up and put away. But I do have a new bookshelf, but I have to wait to move into a different location after this temporary location. Anyway, in this video I didn't mention this. So this is what happened. I know it's very hard to recall something that happened 10 years ago. So it's walking through me, and I'm immediately realizing, wow, I'm having physical contact with something. And I start talking to it. You gotta understand, it just spoke to me something extremely disturbing. But when it starts walking through me, I start talking to it. Not only am I jolting a little bit, but I say, nice to meet you. And that's literally the first words to come out of my mouth, I believe. Might have been the second sentence that came out of my mouth. I really have to piece it together. I have written it down multiple times. I'll go through my notes. But either the first or the second sentence I ever spoke to this entity that walked through me was, nice to meet you. I literally said nice to meet you. I probably have the best manners, human to demon, that this demon had ever experienced, because it says something terrifying with the purpose of scaring me to death. Disembodied voice. Then it walks through me. I feel all this hatred and despair and pain. And my first reaction is to say, nice to meet you. Did I say nice to meet you? I say something to the effect of nice to meet you. I'm actually having manners to a demon. And I think I caught it off guard. I said another sentence, either before or after the nice to meet you. It left, but it left a permanent impression on me. So for those who don't know, my real name is John Houston, And I ordered this specifically for this video. What is it? It is a calendar. I was searching for 2010 calendars, so I'm not an expert on February 17th. I knew it was a couple days after Valentine's Day, but I didn't know anything else until I researched and researched and researched, and I thought, and I think it was Ash Wednesday. I'm not of that particular discipline, belief system, but I believe it was Ash Wednesday. Never participated in that. Don't know much about it. I think they put a cross of ashes on your forehead. It's definitely a popular religious holiday in Catholicism, I believe. So I thought this might have been a Catholic calendar. I didn't know what it was. All I know is it's some religious calendar from 2010. Who buys a calendar from 2010? You can see it right there. "2010 Ecclesiastical Calendar." Who buys a 2010 calendar? Who in this universe? Me. For research purposes on what happened to me February 17th, 2010, because it actually happened. It's not a fake story, it's a true story. I speak the blunt and honest truth. I've never not spoken the blunt, honest truth concerning this story. I've held a few details back here and there, but never for any reason other than to protect myself. Here we have January 2010. What happened February 2010 on the 17th. The reason I know is the 17th, after years of trying to find what day it was, what happened was I texted someone the next day, and in my mind I thought I would have that phone forever and I would have those text messages forever. I shortly thereafter switched phones to a different phone, went back to look to see what the date was on the texts of my old phone, and all the texts were deleted. All the texts were gone. I didn't know texts were temporary. I thought they were permanent, but on this device they were not. So it took me years to track down. I found messages online where I definitely reacted to someone online, and that's how I was able to piece together it was 1000% February 17th. I know of a surety I went to work the next day, so that's one of the ways I was trying to piece it together, but I knew it was after Valentine's Day, but I wasn't sure what day. I knew it couldn't be Friday because I didn't work on Saturday. I knew it couldn't be Saturday because I didn't work on Sunday. So I tried to use different logical reasons to find it. I finally found the message of me reacting to it, the story happening, and it was, this message I sent was on Thursday, February 18th, the day after. And the message I sent was to the same person whose text message I was waiting for that never happened that night. Anyway, here we have presentation of our Lord in the temple. I don't think this is particularly related to celebrated February 2nd. Okay, so that's the thing they're showing February 2nd, but we're focused on February 17th. And I thought it was going to say Ash Wednesday on here, and it doesn't. So I don't know if this is a Catholic calendar or a non-Catholic calendar. Probably non if it doesn't mention Ash Wednesday. It's kind of a big holiday. At least that's what my research led me to believe, that it was Ash Wednesday. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. February 17th. Was it Ash Wednesday or not? But this is what we see on February 17th. You can see it right there. Let me read it. I'll try to zoom in. but February 17th. It says, because I wanted to see if there's any clues as to why the demon chose that day to walk through me. Just for research purposes. February 17th says, Great Martyr Theodore the Tyro, Emperor Marcianos and his wife Pulcheria. Isaiah 2, 3-11, Genesis 1, 24, and 2, 3. So Genesis chapter 1 verse 24, chapter 2 verse 3, Isaiah chapter 2 verses 3-11. I guess I'll check those out, because research purposes, I'll check anything out. I even bought an old calendar. Great Martyr Theodore the Tyro. Never heard of him, don't know what that is. I'll Google him, check it out. Any lead is a good lead. I mean, I got a lead in here which mentioned the voice, and what I described matches, but what it says in this book matches even more than what I said. There's a minute detail you don't hear mentioned very often. I read it, I heard it. Not too many books mention what the voice of the devil sounds like, and this is one of them. And I didn't see it the first time. It's a tiny story. I skipped over it. Saw it the second time, and is the devil's voice scary, or was that high-ranking demon's voice scary? Most definitely. It was definitely scary. Caught me off guard. If I ever had a shred of doubt it was a cat in my closet, which it wasn't. Cats don't speak English in an old man's voice. I remember researching Aleister Crowley said he heard a voice coming from the corner of the hotel room where he wrote the Book of the Law. He claims the spirit dictated what he should write. And he's considered a great poet, and obviously said that he wrote it. He takes credit for writing it, but admits, spirit from the corner told him what to write. And some would say, it's just part of his psyche, so he did write it. And some would say, it's a fake story. He's somewhat of a charlatan. David Bowie called Aleister Crowley a charlatan. But then he praised him in other parts of his career. But Aleister Crowley said the voice in the corner of his room, or the hotel room, spoke in a British accent, and Aleister Crowley was British. So Aleister Crowley reasoned. He's like, this is some ancient spirit. Why is it speaking British? In Egypt. A hotel room in Egypt? Some evil demon spirit dictating the Book of the Law, speaking in a proper British accent? Aleister Crowley figured it's either part of his mind or of such a deceptive spirit that it purposely is speaking British in a British accent to throw him off. Throw him off as to whether or not it was part of his psyche, because I'm sure Aleister Crowley thought in words that had a British accent that accompanied them. Book of the Law is definitely a wicked book, not in a good way, but some people think it is in a good way. Definitely poetic, dark poetic, very dark. It's the type of thing a demon would say. How would I know? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I heard a demon speak. The demon didn't say anything mentioned in the Book of the Law. The demon that I heard speak. And I have to note and be very distinctly clear. I've never heard a spirit speak disembodied or my ears could hear it. Ever. except for this one time, February 17th, 2010. So I got this calendar just for that, just to see that. And maybe it's a bad lead. It only cost me, this calendar only cost me like $6. It's no big deal. But if you know any details on anything on February 17th, let me know. This is the 10-year anniversary. People were having the broom challenge. This isn't a broom, but we were having the broom challenge yesterday, I think, where brooms can stand up easily because the alignment of the earth. I don't know if there's some weird alignment on February 17th, but if you know any details on strange things on February 17th, let me know. Maybe I can piece together some sort of a pattern. I'm not going to be the type of person to have a map with pins and yarn, okay? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just a regular dude who happened to have a supernatural experience, who goes off on extreme tangents and overthinks everything. But not everything. I overthink things that deserve to be thought about and researched. Spirits exist. Disembodied voices rarely, but do, come from these spirits. I totally cut off my Ed and Lorraine Warren story. They're famously known for the Annabelle movies. Their actual haunted doll, Annabelle, is the most famous haunted doll in the world. Their haunted museum is probably the singular inspiration for Zach Bagans' haunted museum. The Warrens' haunted museum had Annabelle, famously. Some guy tapped on the glass and died shortly after, and they blamed Annabelle. But there were already stories of things happening to people around Annabelle, and Annabelle moving and doing this and that. But Ed and Lorraine Warren were on Art Bell. I listened to them at least twice live, and Ed Warren said one of the most terrifying things he'd ever encountered during his ghost investigations was a disembodied voice. He said him and his wife were at a haunted house recording for EVPs. He said most of the time you cannot hear them. He said most of the time is only when you play them back. You can't hear them with your ears coming from the entity. He said most of the time, I don't know if he said 99% of the time, but that was the gist of it. You can't hear a spirit's voice unless you play it back on a recorder. But he said one time stands out. He said he had heard disembodied voices a few times here and there. So he heard them more than me. And he was one of the most renowned ghost investigators in the world. Him and his wife, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Very famous couple. I think they did a great work. They brought truth to the other side, to conscious sentient entities from the other side, on the table of truth. They're here. Here's their voices. Play. You can hear. There's a database, I'm sure, of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of crystal clear EVPs from Ed and Lorraine Warren, who didn't fake it. And if you think they're fake, you can actually go to a haunted location, and I've had pretty bad luck with it. It's like 1 out of every 30 tries will I be lucky enough to get something. Maybe less than that. So Ed and Lorraine Warren probably had spirits following them. Who knows? But I could just tell you this. He said one of the most terrifying things was he heard a voice almost in front of his face. While trying to record them on his recorder, he heard the disembodied voice with his ears right in front of his face. He said it sounded like an old lady yelling at him. And he said he was extremely terrified, and him and his wife took off And yeah, they like investigating ghosts, but that was too much for them. So that particular case stood out among the rest. He said that was one of the most frightening experiences of his life. An invisible person yelling at you right in front of your face when you're probably focusing on rewinding and recording a tiny device. Someone yells at you. I can't imagine, or can I? I mean, I can't imagine. I definitely can imagine, but it's never happened to me. The spirit that spoke to me in 2010, February 17th, I estimate between 11 p.m. and 11:14 p.m. If it sat, 3 minutes passed, it walked close to me, it was probably 3:05, 6, 7, 8, 9 p.m. when it spoke. I don't know the exact time frame, but somewhere around there. It didn't yell at me. It did not yell at me. Let me consciously replay what happened to me. Let me see. I might as well tell you, it said 4 words. The negative spirit, the unclean spirit, approximately 2 feet away from me, spoke 4 words. I'm trying to recall how slow it said it, and I have reproduced and I have spoken it to a few select family members. And some of them are freaked out and tell me to change the subject. Some of them smile with a nervous smile and they're like, and look at me funny. So I don't mention it too often. But the voice was an old man's voice, as old as an old man can be. And Crowley's spirit in the Egyptian hotel room spoke in a British accent. Crowley was British. The spirit that spoke to me, disembodied voice, I could hear with my ears. No device required. I was on my bed. I'm sure someone was going to say, how come you didn't grab your phone and record it? First time it ever happened to me in my life. Last time it ever happened to me in my life. How come I didn't start recording when I heard a creak in my closet? If you hear a creak in your closet, you don't grab your phone and start recording. You just assume it's something settling in the box. You just blow it off. But I can't blow off a disembodied voice I heard that spoke 4 words in distinct English, and it did not have a British accent. I mean, I think it had an American accent. Does that mean the devil's American? To be honest, it spoke so slowly that, shoot, it could have had a British accent, but I didn't notice any obvious accent. It definitely sounded American, but when you're a 100-year-old man speaking slowly, a 100-year-old man speaking slowly in America, a 100-year-old man speaking slowly in a European country, as long as they're both speaking English, you're not going to hear too much of an accent. I didn't notice too much of an accent. I didn't notice any accent. The voice sounded human. I don't think it was a human spirit. I think it was 100% a demon. People don't believe in demons. That's why I sometimes use the term unclean spirit, evil spirit, to really distinguish and differentiate between what it was. If you don't I like the term demon. The space it took to speak the 4 words to me was about count that out. It was about that long to speak to me. So it spoke pretty slowly, clearly, but not crystal clear. It sounded like it sort of was struggling to speak, probably because it didn't have a body. I'm sure if you don't have a body in your spirit, it's perhaps virtually impossible to speak unless you're a higher ranking. Have more energy, have more ability. Perhaps it has the 1,000 spirits that follow it. A legion of spirits, perhaps. I researched what's a legion, and I've researched what's for like an hour, 2 hours straight. What's a legion? I surfed the internet years ago on what is the exact definition of how much is a legion, because legions of demons is a thing I'm sure you've heard about, biblically speaking, and I wanted to know how many legions, or was it one legion, and the exact definition of legion is, I mean, a Roman army would consider it different from a different army, and blah blah blah. Legion could be just a good number of military men. I heard it could be 5,000, it could be 10,000. And when I say the spirit had 1,000 spirits follow it, they went so fast I couldn't count them all. They're probably stacked on top of each other. I did witness in 2011 some type of stacking that they perhaps could have done. These are subjects that involve higher dimensional beings, higher dimensional entities. If you do not believe in higher dimensional beings, then you don't believe in higher dimensions, right? Or at least you're not open to the concept of higher dimensions being occupied. I think science, and I'm a huge fan of science, I love science, should research, and it's hard for them to research spirits. It's such a taboo subject, but Ed and Lorraine Warren proved you can get cold hard data. Scientists are afraid to get a voice on a recorder. It's cold hard factual data that's right there. You could say, anyone here? Record. You can record anyone here? Hello? Stop and play it back. And 1 out of every 30 tries at a legitimately known, famously haunted location in the middle of the night during a 24-hour lockdown is going to be a time when you're more likely to get a response. Some of the responses are going to be crystal clear. That's pretty good data if you're a scientist doing it on a scientific level, but no scientist will touch the subject in a million years. They know it'll destroy their credibility, destroy their career. Mainstream scientists know higher dimensions exist. They wouldn't have built the Large Hadron Collider and spent probably around $18-19 billion by now. Maybe it's 20 million. Last time I checked, they spent at least $17 billion on the Large Hadron Collider. Probably the last time I Googled it was probably a year ago. And I added it up. I added how much is it per year. As of a year ago, I think they spent $17 billion on building, maintaining, and running the Large Hadron Collider for one single purpose. The singular purpose of this $18 billion toy, this $18 billion scientific machine, is to shoot particles into each other at such fast speeds, being recorded by computers on minute levels. They smash into each other, they smash particles into each other, and scientists know that higher dimensions exist. They're hoping to, with scientific data, record pieces of these particles disappearing into other dimensions. They know of a fact, they know of a surety, this happens, this is real. They wouldn't have spent $18 billion running and building and maintaining such a device if they weren't dead sure this is the reality, higher dimensions exist. It's called M theory, string theory. Very well known. Dr. Michio Kaku, co-founder of string theory, would say and agree with me that the M stands for membranes, and these are membranes of dimensions stacked on top of each other. It's part of string theory. It's a less talked about part. The strings is what everyone talks about. The whole universe isn't built by atoms or quarks, but something much smaller, and these smaller things are strings. We can't see them, but it's part of the theory of string theory. But M theory is another word for string theory, and membranes of dimensions are stacked on top of each other. In one of these membranes, could there be people occupied in higher dimensional membranes? Dr. Michio Kaku would say, why not? It's possible. But he's a diehard theoretical quantum physicist, and he wouldn't ever say, oh, I believe in spirits, I believe in ghosts, I've had a couple encounters here and there, or I've heard about it, I believe it, I know someone who lived in a haunted house. He would never say that. He's a strict to the facts, mainstream scientist, lover. I'm a scientist lover as well. Theoretical quantum physicist, though. Not exactly a scientist, but adheres to mainstream science to an extreme degree. But with theories, he can go off and create some theories, which he's famously done so. Different classes of civilizations. We're class 0. I think he said we're type 0, or are we type 1? Type 0 or 1 or something. Type 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. I think type 2 can harness all of the power of the sun, and type 3 can harness all the power of the galaxy, or something to that effect. You take your head out of these possible extraterrestrials that can harness the power of the sun, and if you focus on the higher dimensional entities that are already all around us, they can see us, we can't see them, unless you have a spiritual gift to see them. I have a spiritual gift to feel them and even gauge them. And I think they're gauging me, and I gauge them back when they walk through me. They probably don't even know. I think some of them know. I'm positive the spirit of February 17th, 2010 knows of a surety that I have the ability. And maybe they thought they could do something with it. Maybe they thought they could play with me, mess with me. Maybe they realize, I'm not going to do anything important with it, so I'm not a threat anymore. Or who knows how they think, all right? These spirits are not human. They're non-human spirits. They don't think like humans think. How do they think? I can only throw theories out there, but I have many theories, especially concerning the poltergeist imps from 2011, which I will talk about in the future. This video has gone on way too long, but I thank you for bearing with me, listening to everything I have to say to the end. I pause many times because I'm talking off the top of my head. I go off on a million tangents because that's how I think. I'm trying to tie everything together, make it somewhat interesting and worth watching, worth listening to. But I understand if you got to take breaks and listen to it, watch this video in the space of a week, space of a month. But I hope this video is a permanent reference you can go back to and say, hey, that guy experienced this, that guy experienced that. As far as the minute little detail of how the devil's voice supposedly sounds according to this book, you can get this book and find it. You probably have to read the whole book to find it. And then you will know even more about how the voice sounded. I will reproduce. I can try and I can come close to the voice of the old man that's spoke to me. It wasn't a human, though. It wasn't a ghost. Ghosts don't have 1,000 demons following them, behind them. Ghosts don't feel like pure hatred when they walk through you. That's a demon. Classic demon. It's the first time I ever reacted so strongly. I think I was protected. No one's immune, so never consider yourself invincible. But I think I was protected. I think I'm still protected to this day. I don't believe I've ever been possessed. Scary subject. Not something to take lightly. To the guy in 2011 who told me never to talk about this, you are one of the main inspirations as to why I do talk about this. Because no one can tell me what I can talk about and what I can't talk about. The exact same religious discipline, group, sect, denomination, where the guy told me not to talk about it, they also said you should write down a journal and write down your history of your life. So they just contradicted each other. I'm not looking for contradictions. It was a totally different guy that said you should, speaking to a classroom of everybody, and he's like, you should write a journal of your life. And everyone's like, oh, that sounds cool. And that would be me chiming in. I would chime in and say, oh, is it okay to write about this? Now, I didn't obviously mention it. I don't go out of my way to mention it in the real world based on the reactions. I have mentioned it a few times here and there. Usually get dirty looks, confused looks, more specifically some type of combination of scared looks mixed with confused looks. Almost scared and confused mixed. So they're not sure if I'm joking, they're not sure if I'm lying, they're not sure what's going on, but they notice if I tell a story, the atmosphere of the room changes. They usually leave the room or tell me to change the subject. When you talk about demons to the level that I talk about them, they show up and listen to you while you talk about them. Not all the time, and not all the time on any level where you can measure it, but I believe it could be measured. The data would be thrown out and considered pseudoscience. But I have some really good experiments where I would like to test them out one day. They're radical and bizarre and over the top, but maybe one day I'll try it. See, I have no fear of demons. I'm pretty fearless of them. Where did the fearlessness come from? I was definitely full of fear on February 17th, 2010. The fearlessness came at the end of the 6-month harassment in 2011. I found a new place on Craigslist, $400, moved in. I call that place that I moved into, the $400 a month on Craigslist room that I found, the master bedroom, I call that house the Gates of Hell, because it was the most terrifying, horrific thing that ever happened in my life. Way worse than the demon poltergeist that spoke, which was the high-ranking demon. Accepting in a compact time frame. In a compact, from the perspective of one single day, most definitely the high-ranking demon was the most terrifying thing that's ever happened to me. In the space of 5 minutes, in the space of 10 minutes. But in the space of 6 months, every single day, for 165 days in a row, 10 to 20 objects were flung across my room with my eyes seeing it as it happened. Now, when I say flung, every object that was moved by the poltergeist imps were moved seemingly by an invisible hand or an invisible foot that I could never see. But I could hear almost the echo and sound effect of a human hand hitting the cup before it fell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet onto my floor, off my table. The first time I saw something knocked in front of my eyeballs, I immediately knew and immediately recalled February 17th, 2010. I was like, this is maybe, I probably thought it was the same entity, the high-ranking demon. But it wasn't. It was 2 imp demons, most clearly assigned to me from the high-ranking demon. And I know it's not the high-ranking demon because every single night for 165 days, I believe, it was 4.5 months. Was it 5.5 months? It was just short of 6 months. But then I moved into another place, and I had pretty good residual attacks, harassment for probably 2 weeks. So that 2 weeks matched almost exactly the 2 weeks where it didn't start yet. When I first moved into the 2011 $400 a month room on Drake Drive, I believe. And so it was a solid 6 months. But 99% of the activity ceased when I moved out of the poltergeist haunted room. 1% of it continued except for the first 2 weeks in the new place. Check out my video, The Demon Poltergeist Haunting of John Razimus, if you want to know a little more details on this and that, and my playlists where I have probably 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 videos on this very subject. This is a pretty comprehensive video on the Demon Poltergeist high-ranking demon specifically that spoke on February 17th, 2010. I know I sound kind of dumb, repeating myself. I'm very tired. I just did a video right before this video because this is the last time I can ever use this backdrop. Stay tuned. More episodes coming soon. What happened happened. I'm getting very tired. It's probably 3 a.m. right now. I don't believe in haunted objects per se, but if I did, I think this lamp is haunted. I could talk about the potentially haunted lamp in the future, but that's for another time. I have many stories. All my spirit stories, all my ghost stories are 100% true. If they're mundane, if you consider them just really stretched out and mundane, it's because I think about them for years and years and years and years. I've thought about this story for 10 years straight because it happened 10 years ago. It's my true history. And yes, I'm writing a journal, and I've written about it many, many pages. I don't know how many pages this particular story, maybe 5 pages. When you write it out on a piece of paper, it's not that long. But if I write about this story, I will have, probably 5 pages of it, and then I'll have the diagram I drew many years ago. I'll also have the photographs I took. So my sister was moving out. I heard that. I wanted to help her move, but my real intention was to take photographs of the room. And by the time I got there, the bed was gone, already packed, probably in the U-Haul. But what's unfortunate is the box the demon sat on was moved by the time I got there. You gotta understand, this is months after, a good number of weeks or months, a couple months, good number of weeks after I moved out. My sister tells me she's moving. My main motivation is other than to help her, is to take photographs. I took about 10 photos of the room, and most of the photos focus on the closet corner, the closet where the demon manifested. Who takes multiple photos of a closet that has just junk? And it wasn't my junk, it was my niece's junk. And the box that the entity sat on doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be enshrined. It's been probably destroyed at the bottom of a landfill by now. I just wanted to have a photo of it, but it's no big deal. I didn't expect everything to be in perfect order when I got there. But a good number of things were still as is. And I can tell you one thing. Looking at the photographs, there was one obvious object immediately behind the exact location where the box was in the closet. And that object was a mirror. There was a mirror exactly behind the cardboard box where the demon manifested in my closet. And I've come across many stories on ghosts, and I came across a couple on ghosts coming through mirrors or using a mirror as a portal. So I did a couple hours of research on spirits, probably more than a couple, probably a good number of hours on research on spirits using mirrors as portals, walking through mirrors. Freethinker Silver had a video on mirrors and portals, and I think we already communicated with each other before I found his mirror video. But that was a very cool video. Check out Freethinker Silver. I have a lot of other supporters. Lord Josh, Brandon Young, Sam Shadow, Bless, Parco Rodriguez, Free Fortune Teller, and those are my main supporters. A handful of supporters, just a handful. The last video I'm making in this room, most likely. Stay tuned. Apologize for the length. Thank you for holding on in there and staying in there. And even I'm falling asleep, so I don't judge you if you fell asleep. Thank you for watching. I'm John Razimus, true story. My birth name is John W.F. Houston. Be seeing you.